All right, everybody, welcome in. It's time to talk about these two guys and misinformation, which has just reached such a fever pitch. Maybe people are bored. Guess what? 49ers report to training camp on Tuesday, the 26th. We're only a few days away. But it's gotten to the point where I could tell this is rankling even 49ers executives, high level 49ers officials. I know Diana Rossini came on ESPN today and was talking about her source from within the 49ers. And to me, it sounded a whole lot like a very annoyed Kyle Shanahan, who texted her saying, I don't know how many other ways I can explain this to you, but Trey Lance is our quarterback. I'm paraphrasing there. But to me, somebody who's known Kyle Shanahan here for quite some time, I started covering the 49ers back in 2017. It seemed to me that Diana Rossini was quoting Kyle Shanahan. I don't know for sure, but she has a source on the inside with the 49ers who seemed a little bit impatient about all of this crap that's going around because we still have people doubting the 49ers' belief in Trey Lance, despite the fact that they spent 3 first-round picks to trade up and go get him in 2021, despite the fact that they've been showering him, players, coaches alike, with adulation over the course of this offseason, despite the fact that if we actually follow tea leaves and follow what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have said, we clearly have had the 49ers path illuminated for us. But still, for some reason, whether it's clickbait, whether it's boredom, there is a subset of people that kind of fly off of the path here. And it just gets tiresome because in this modern age where everybody has a megaphone, people who shouldn't have a megaphone do have one, then it just leads to this conflicting shit show of information. So I'm going to go through 9 of the lies surrounding Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and this whole offseason saga that have, some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller, some lies are subsets of bigger ones, but all of them combined have created this absolutely insane climate. I hate to be in a post-truth environment. For me, the truth is important. For me, reporting stuff accurately is important. And when such liberties are taken, when the discourse has gone so far off the rails that truth no longer seems to matter or be the basis of, any sense of dialogue, then that's what I call a post-truth environment. So hopefully this helps reset any discourse that we have. You could send this to all your friends, of course, tell them to subscribe, like the video, do all that. But hopefully we can regain some sense of being tethered into reality with this video just by going through what the lies are, what the misinformation is, so we can set the table for training camp on Tuesday and analyze this with a fair and clear mind. So without further ado, I'm going to go through all 9 of these. Big lie number 1. So there are going to be 2 big lies and then 7 smaller ones. Again, everything's intertwined. Some of this stuff might overlap, but just to make sense of it, we're going to go through all 9. Big lie number 1, the 49ers doubt Trey Lance. Okay, if they doubted Trey Lance, then why the hell do they bet the farm on trading up to draft him? Why the hell are they openly and have been openly trying to shop Jimmy Garoppolo for a trade for several months? And why the hell would an inside source tell ESPN's Diana Rossini today, I don't know how many other ways I can tell you this, but Trey Lance is our quarterback? So, this is the one big foundational lie, right? And then the other lies kind of feed into this one, but it's just so ridiculous on the surface level because of the 3 pillars of truth that I just pointed out that I don't see how anybody could possibly believe it. But it's kind of tied into big lie number 2, that Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the roster because the 49ers don't trust Trey Lance. Okay, so, just playing devil's advocate here. The 49ers are somehow sketched out by Trey Lance, arm fatigue, whatever you want to call it, run quarterback, whatever you want to call it. None of that's true, by the way. I'm going to handle that, address those things here in the next few bullet points. But say that the 49ers are so sketched out that, that they have to keep Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster. Are we just ignoring the fact that John Lynch came out at the NFL Combine, and then he came out again at the NFL owners meetings, and that Kyle Shanahan at every single media availability this offseason has said that the 49ers are trying to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. You have to be absolutely willfully ignorant to think that the reason that Garoppolo is still on the 49ers roster right now is because they don't trust Trey Lance. Two things can coexist. The 49ers can trust Trey Lance, and they can also be doing the smartest thing possible with Jimmy Garoppolo, holding on to him while it doesn't hurt them financially, trying to get a trade return. That has nothing to do with their belief in Trey Lance, right? So just because you want one thing to be true, just because you want Trey Lance to be the next Patrick Mahomes and you want him to take over and run away with this job, doesn't mean that something totally unrelated, like Jimmy Garoppolo being on the roster, even though the 49ers are trying to trade him, it doesn't mean that that thing has to be taken care of right when you want it to be taken care of. Maybe it's a short attention span, instant gratification kind of thing, but people mistake inaction. And right now, there hasn't been action on the Jimmy Garoppolo trade front yet. They mistake it with greater meaning. They subscribe greater meaning to it than there's actually there. Not everything is some kind of conspiracy that's surrounding the 49ers, or not everything is out to get you. If you're a fan of Trey Lance, just because Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the roster doesn't mean that Trey Lance is somehow undermined. And I'm going to go through some of the smaller lies here and explain a little bit of that. But I think as an overarching key, remember that every single media availability this offseason, plus more, plus sourced reports from trusted reporters. I would like to think of myself as a trusted reporter. All the chatter, all the 49ers direction has been aimed at Jimmy Garoppolo being traded because Trey Lance is their guy for 2022. And, you could even zoom out if you think that lacks firm footing. Look at the credibility of the people who have actually reported the facts over the last couple of years. Go back to March 2021 when the 49ers made the trade up to number 3. The solid reporting, right? And I'm not saying this is the majority of reporting, but the solid reporting was that the 49ers were going to keep Garoppolo and that Trey Lance was going to be their quarterback of the future. That they would, for at least one season, shepherd Trey Lance in under Jimmy Garoppolo's tutelage. And they thought that they had a great setup to do just that. There were a lot of naysayers throughout that 2021 offseason. Oh, that's impossible. There's no way they're keeping both of these quarterbacks. They spent way too much on Trey Lance. They're going to, trade Jimmy Garoppolo. They're just holding their cards close to the vest. Even though it made no sense for the 49ers to hold their cards close to the vest. If they wanted to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, they could have shouted it from the rooftops and done it, but they didn't want to do it. So the solid reporting of this was always Jimmy Garoppolo has 2021, regardless of, what's going to happen, because Trey Lance is still way too inexperienced last year. Trey's going to learn from Jimmy. He's going to learn the X's and O's. From Nate Sudfeld, he's going to learn about the business side of the league. He's going to come into 2022 as a vet. And if all things go well, then Trey Lance will be able to take over in 2022. And Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have been eminently clear at every single step. And then you could talk to George Kittle, as I've done. You could talk to anybody. You could talk to anybody on this 49ers roster. They're unequivocal in their evaluation of Trey Lance because they saw him. They've been in the building with him for a year. They say that he's ready for this moving forward. So who are you going to believe? Some random person on Twitter or multiple people who have been in the building with Trey Lance for a year and a half at this point? People who have a strong track record of actually doing what they say, because it wasn't too hard to chart the 49ers course. People made it way more dramatic than it had to be, but it wasn't too hard to see they'd keep Garoppolo in 2021 and have Lance in 2022. All right, so let's move on. Lie number 3. Now, these are the smaller lies that I think, form a basis for the two bigger ones, that being the 49ers doubt Trey Lance, and 2, Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the roster because the 49ers don't trust Trey Lance. Lie number 3 is that Trey Lance went to a low-level school, so therefore, for some reason, he's a low-level talent. No, that correlation is debunked by one of the greatest 49ers of all time. Jerry Rice went to Mississippi Valley State. You wouldn't have heard of Mississippi Valley State unless Jerry Rice went there. So elite talent can go to very small schools. And Trey Lance went to North Dakota State, which is a small school, lower level school, I guess I should say, not a small school, but they're definitely not irrelevant. In fact, this is the QB factory that's already produced Carson Wentz an Easton Stick. For an FCS school, that's a hell of a track record. These guys know how to pump out quarterback talent. And it's downright insulting to somebody like Randy Hedberg, longtime quarterbacks coach at North Dakota State, to suggest that Trey Lance is a low-level talent just because he went there. It's disproven by the handful of other players. I mean, even Jimmy Garoppolo went to a low-level school, right? He went to Eastern Illinois. Guess who else went to Eastern Illinois? Mike Shanahan, Tony Romo. You could be a good NFL player coming from a small school. So I think this one is easily debunked. Line number 4, Trey Lance is a run-first QB. Just because he does run doesn't mean that he should be stereotyped into this box. In fact, North Dakota State, we talk about them under Randy Hedberg. I've written a ton of pieces about this, including one with their QB coach, Randy Hedberg himself, where they're known for pro-style offense at North Dakota State. In fact, Trey Lance lined up under center and ran more pro-style play-action looks than any of the other quarterback prospects at the top of the 2021 draft. Yes, more than Mac Jones, who everybody by stereotype, again, just assumes was the most pro-ready quarterback. More than Justin Fields, who played at Ohio State. More than, some of the lesser-known guys, and yes, even more than Zach Wilson out of BYU. But Trey Lance was the most pro-trained quarterback out of any of these guys because of the specific things that North Dakota State made him do. So then he shows up to the NFL, and yes, Kyle Shanahan runs him way too many times in week 5 or week 4, whenever it was. I think it was week 5 against Arizona. That was Trey Lance's NFL starting debut. But in retrospect, we can actually use context and information. In retrospect, we know that Trey Lance had a crooked finger in his first career NFL start because he broke it hitting somebody's helmet against the Raiders at the end of the preseason. So this guy comes in, first career NFL start. His prior experience was a half against Seattle. That was after Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. And before that, just some preseason play and, of course, FCS play. So that's a huge jump. And his finger's crooked on top of that, right? Of course, the 49ers are going to call the game plan with which Kyle Shanahan is most comfortable that Trey Lance himself is going to be comfortable. And he put Trey Lance's body out on the line. I didn't agree with it. And I was vocal about that at the time. You can go back and watch the videos. You can go back and look at my tweets, my articles on The Athletic. Kyle Shanahan, he ran Trey Lance, I believe, 16 times in that game. Yeah, and then Trey Lance hurt his knee in that game. I didn't like the game plan. But at the time, in retrospect, when you have the benefit of hindsight, which is obviously 2020, as the saying goes, we know that Lance wasn't capable of throwing the ball at full accuracy because of the broken finger. The finger was literally crooked. And that's on top of the fact that he was inexperienced as a passer going up against NFL defenses. He was literally thrown in with the Sharks against Arizona. So to judge the 49ers' ultimate plans with Trey Lance based on one game against the Arizona Cardinals when all of this was awry for Trey, and to say, oh, he's just going to run first quarterback, and ignore the mountains of other evidence, such as the pro-style background from North Dakota State, the fact that Kyle Shanahan wouldn't just draft a guy who's going to be run first. Kyle Shanahan wants both. This has been well documented. Mike Shanahan coached Steve Young and John Elway, two of the greatest dual threats ever, really. Steve Young might be the greatest dual threat quarterback ever. Kyle Shanahan, before the 2021 draft, went out and said it clearly that he wants a quarterback who could throw like Drew Brees, but run like Lamar Jackson. Well, in Trey Lance, he feels that he has both. But through multiple interviews, Kyle has always emphasized that he wants somebody who could at first execute and win from the pocket. The legs are an added bonus. He doesn't want you to drop back and run first. The legs are an added bonus. So it's eminently clear what Kyle Shanahan wants. And it's quite frankly insulting to Kyle Shanahan and the people who know football a whole lot better than you. And I'm just talking to people who, keep on peddling this kind of stuff below me, listed as line number 4. It's insulting to suggest that better than them that he would just draft the run first quarterback and be done with it. These are people who are paid way much more than the random Twitter user, but spend thousands, hundreds of thousands of hours studying quarterback play, determining what the best fit for the offense is going to be, and then just some casual internet troll is going to know better. It just blows my mind. So Lance, he's not a run first quarterback. He is a quarterback who the 49ers see as moldable clay with athleticism. They see the pro-style background of North Dakota State. They see a lot of smarts up here, and they're going to try to develop him, and that process has already started, into a QB who can destroy defenses through both that, the ability to deliver through the pocket, and the ability to accentuate with his legs. That's exactly what Steve Young did when he revolutionized football back in the 1990s. Line number 5, the 49ers can't win with Trey Lance. Well, they've already won with Trey Lance. He lost the start and he won a start in 2021. But the truth is that we don't know how good the 49ers will be with Trey Lance. And if we don't know, if that is the truth, if our pillar of truth is we don't know, it's okay to say those words, then anything presuming that we know more than that is a lie. You're going out with no data. All of NFL history has shown us that some players develop well, some players don't. Where will Trey Lance end up? We don't know. It's all a gamble. It's all a bet, but the 49ers have confidence that they've made a solid bet. Now we'll see what the results of that bet are. But to say flatly that they can't win with Trey Lance at quarterback without actually having data to back that up in one way or the other, because players develop, especially between year 1 and year 2, and don't mind me, but Trey Lance already won in year 1. To go out and make a crazy proclamation like the 49ers can't win with Trey Lance right now, it's a lie. It's just not rooted in truth. Line number 6, it's clearly a rebuilding year for the 49ers because of Trey Lance. Okay, so this one admits that Trey Lance is here to start, but the 49ers are rebuilding. That is so preposterous on like 5 different levels. If you just look at the 49ers roster construction, they're nearly maxing out their cap. If and when they do trade away Jimmy Garoppolo or release him, they'll have money for a midseason trade acquisition. So they're clearly bracing themselves to be buyers at the trade deadline if the season so calls for it. And they've clearly stocked both sides of the football with veterans. If the 49ers truly thought this were a rebuilding year, they'd be cutting bait with some of these guys. There's money to be saved on the roster, but instead they're stacking up star power. Deebo Samuel's about to get re-signed. Nick Bosa is about to get re-signed. Either way, those 2 guys are still under contract for this season. It would be complete insanity for the 49ers to not be making a run at something after the past 3 seasons have seen them as serious contenders. 2019, they lose the Super Bowl, blow a lead in the second half. 2021, they blow a lead in the fourth quarter against the Rams in the NFC Championship. In 2020, the 49ers, they hadn't been that injured. They had a title-capable roster. I mean, their DVOA finished in the top 10, even though they were 6-10. So that goes back to Jimmy Garoppolo's injuries, which I'll touch on in a little bit. But this is an ultra-competitive roster that's maturing into its prime. And for the 49ers to just shut it down and decide to have a rebuilding year in the middle of a prime window, they're coming off a Super Bowl appearance and an NFC Championship game of the past 3 years. For them to just sit back and shut it down would be insanity unlike anything we've ever seen before in NFL history. It just doesn't make sense. No, what the 49ers are trying to do, they are trying to have their cake and eat it too. And we'll see if it's possible. They tried to keep Jimmy Garoppolo for 2021, see how far that could take them. And it took them far. It took them all the way to the NFC title game while shepherding in Trey Lance. And they're trying to raise the ceiling of their offense and their roster as a whole, because Trey Lance is obviously going to be cheaper than Jimmy Garoppolo was on the rookie contract. So they'll have some cap room to maybe make a midseason trade. You know, the Rams made some midseason trades last year. Von Miller helped push them over the top. So this is a ceiling raising move. Trey Lance is something, you know, a player that the 49ers are looking at as something that, you know, accentuates their window here to try to win a title. They're not trying to scale back into a rebuild. That'd be a fireable offense if they're scaling back into a rebuild the year after they were a play away from the Super Bowl, right? And the roster is still in its maturing phase. So this is absolutely ridiculous. Line number 7, keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. Now we're, okay, by the way, now we're moving to the Jimmy Garoppolo portion of the lies. So we had the Trey Lance focused portion. Now here's the Garoppolo focused portion. We're going to combine both, you know, to go back to the big lies at the top. Everybody, if you're just coming in, like the video, subscribe to the channel. You know the drill. I know there's a lot of you that watch and don't subscribe. So let's close that gap. I got to shame you a little bit here. And let me have a little drink of water. All right. So lie number 7, keeping Jimmy Garoppolo prevented the 49ers from affording free agents. Well, they have $5 million in cap room right now, so they're not out of money. And they got every free agent that they went after. this year. The big fish was Charvarius Ward. They wanted a top caliber cornerback. They got themselves a top caliber cornerback at what? Was it 14 million average per year? I think it was around 14 million average per year. So it didn't stop them from getting their A-lister. They got their A-lister in Charvarius Ward. Didn't stop them from signing Ray McLeod. They wanted, a returner. They wanted George Odom. They wanted a good special teams addition, right? And I'm talking about a crop of players to be a special teams addition because they were terrible in that phase of the game. So they got Oren Burks. They got George Odom. They got their headliner, Charvarius Ward. They got Ray McLeod. It wasn't going to be a massive spending year for the 49ers in free agency regardless. The Jimmy Garoppolo money is not guaranteed to him until if and when he makes the 53-man roster, and that decision doesn't come until August 30th. If and when that money does free up, the 49ers will need some to be able to make potential in-season moves. They've freed up all that they possibly could have needed by restructuring deals for Eric Armstead and George Kittle to carry Jimmy Garoppolo onto the roster into the 2022 league year. So money has never been a concern, especially since the NFL is about to start seeing the fruits of a $100+ billion TV deal that is going to inflate the salary cap at a rate that we have not yet seen before. That's about to start happening here over the next couple of years. Because of that, it doesn't really cost teams much, if anything, to restructure contracts and backload deals so that cap payments are further into the future. That's exactly what the 49ers did when they restructured George Kittle, when they restructured Eric Armstead back in March. They freed up money to carry Jimmy Garoppolo right now, and then they could free up that money entirely if and when Jimmy Garoppolo is traded or released, and then they could spend that money in the near term if they pick up somebody or two players before the trade deadline. If they don't do that, they can roll it over into next season. But either way, the 49ers are managing this financially in a sound fashion because they're taking into account that we're going to see salary cap inflation that's unprecedented in NFL history. If the 49ers had actually been prevented from signing somebody that they wanted to sign because they were holding Jimmy Garoppolo, then yes, I would see that somebody would have a point here with lie number 7. But that just simply isn't the case. The paper trail, the money trail, the reporting trail indicates that isn't the case. So it is a lie. It's built on assumptions. It's built on, this need. Again, people didn't like the fact there was inaction, that Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't traded around March and April when free agency was going on. And because people didn't like that, because they wanted to criticize just for the hell of criticizing, they made a false supposition. They said, because Jimmy Garoppolo's money is on the roster, the 49ers can't sign anybody else. And this just wasn't true. You look at the books. I broke down all the finances. You look at the 49ers' actions. They got Charvarius Ward. They got their crop of players. It wasn't true. This is how the 49ers operate in free agency. And guess what? They're going to step up, and they're going to re-sign Deebo Samuel, and they're going to re-sign Nick Bosa. Both of those deals are going to be very, very lucrative. They may not be record deals, but they'll both be very lucrative. And they'll be able to fit this even with Jimmy Garoppolo's money still on the books. They'll do it by backloading. They'll do it by taking advantage of salary cap inflation. So all these money arguments, they just don't hold any water when you actually look at the numbers. Lie number 8, keeping Garoppolo is for hurting the 49ers team chemistry. Well, for this, why don't you just go talk to some of the 49ers players like we have over the course of the whole last year. Talk to Trey Lance. This whole 2-quarterback thing that the 49ers had going on in 2021, a lot of people swore that it would derail the locker room, set everything on fire, and that the 49ers would never possibly recover from it. If you talk to Lance, you talk to Jimmy Garoppolo, you talk to Shanahan, anybody in the locker room, that couldn't have been further from the truth. The 49ers have a good locker room. Garoppolo played this as a consummate professional and good team player in 2021, and that's simply the truth of it. You didn't see this locker room fracture. In fact, you saw the 49ers do the remarkable. They went from 3-5, a bad start, injury-fueled start, to surging through 4 elimination games all the way to the NFC Championship. In fact, they had actually, had a bye week, which they didn't get because of that slow start. But if they had established that bye week, then I think they win the Super Bowl. I think they ran out of gas against the Rams. And obviously they probably do better against the Rams there in the fourth quarter if Trent Williams isn't playing on a high ankle sprain. I mean, the 49ers, they ran out of steam. That's the only way to put it. They played an NFL record 12 road games last season, the franchise record 20 total games last season. And they walked the tightrope. It exhilarated a lot of people week by week by week. They kept on winning, whether it be in Dallas in the Lambeau snow, at SoFi Stadium in week 18 with everything on the line. They got it done time and time again until they finally hit the dead end against the Rams, a 3-point loss, 20-17 in the NFC Championship game. So that certainly wasn't a team that was frayed by bad chemistry. And at the moment, for the whole offseason, Jimmy Garoppolo has been away from the team facility. So that hasn't hurt chemistry. Now we're going to see him show up, I think, to training camp. And I'll predict something for you. I don't think it's going to hurt the 49ers team chemistry. I think that everybody understands the business aspect of this. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo understands that he probably would like to be released right now because he wants to regain his option power and sign wherever he wants to. But I think he also understands that the 49ers have him under contract through 2022. And they don't just want to give that up for nothing. So they're going to wait and see until they can't wait and see any longer. And I think everybody will learn how to coexist in training camp. If Joe Montana and Steve Young learned how to coexist for 5 years, 1987 all the way to 1992? Yeah, 5 years. If that was the situation with the 49ers back then, I think that Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance can coexist for one training camp. Or even if this extends beyond that, I think they can learn how to coexist. This, again, number 8, has no data supporting it. Line number 9, the 49ers have botched this entire transition. And to that, I say, what should the 49ers have done? There is no sound alternative. The plan has always been for Trey Lance to take over in 2022 and Jimmy Garoppolo to be traded after 2021. But Jimmy Garoppolo played the end of 2021 hurt, very hurt. Torn capsule, which kind of leads to torn rotator cuff. They're both in the same spot. They're connected to each other. In his throwing shoulder, he gutted through a lot. I mean, it was very clear where Garoppolo got hurt when Randy Gregory hit him in the wild card round against the Dallas Cowboys. Well, it was a situation with the numbers with Jimmy Garoppolo where he fell off a cliff. He played really well in that first part of that game against Dallas, and then he really struggled after he tore up his shoulder, which happened while his thumb was already torn up. So he ran out of steam in the playoffs, and they still almost made the Super Bowl. But there was a clear inflection point between healthy Jimmy Garoppolo or healthy shoulder Jimmy Garoppolo and hurt Jimmy Garoppolo in the playoffs. And he played through it. Was it heroic? You can judge for yourself. But the bottom line is that injury carried into the offseason. And this was the offseason where the 49ers planned to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. He did his very best for a month after the season to rehab the shoulder, to try to not have surgery, to try to get that shoulder strength back without having to go under the knife. About a month into the offseason, though, it became clear that wasn't going to work. And this was an alarm bell for Jimmy Garoppolo where he felt, okay, my shoulder's not going to heal with rehab. If I continue to be here throughout this offseason, I'm going to struggle to pass a physical. Nobody's truly going to want me. And if I decide to have surgery a month or two from now, well, then I won't be ready for the start of the regular season. That's what Jimmy Garoppolo is saying. So he says, well, we better scrap the original plan. We better have surgery now. Obviously, the 49ers didn't want it to get to that. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't want it to get to that. Both sides did not benefit from this getting to surgery. But guess what? This is the NFL. Injuries happen, recoveries are unpredictable, and sometimes you have to have surgery when the rehab doesn't take. So both the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo obviously suffered a setback with that surgery. But in the larger scheme of things, they didn't have a choice. If the rehab isn't taking, and what are they supposed to do? Really, what are they supposed to do? Because the chickens are going to come home to roost at some point. If you try to trade him 4 weeks after that, after the surgery isn't taking and the shoulder still isn't better, a potential team, potential suitor is going to sit there, have him undergo a physical and be like, your shoulder's still messed up. We're not trading for you. And then where are you at if you're the 49ers and if you're Jimmy Garoppolo? So he undergoes the surgery. And guess what? One of the byproducts of a quarterback who's undergone shoulder surgery on his throwing arm when you're trying to trade him is that teams might be a little spooked from trading for him. Initially, John Lynch thought that, okay, the surgery has a straightforward recovery time, but Jimmy Garoppolo has an injury history. And it was musical chairs for the quarterbacks this offseason. There was an active market. There were other quarterbacks available. Nobody ended up willing to be able to take the chance on a quarterback who was unable to throw and would be unable to throw for several more months. At that point, the 49ers' hands are tied. Some people will argue, the people who promote this lie will say, well, they should have just released Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, they can't release him if he has a $7.5 million injury guarantee without taking $7.5 million and lighting it on fire. That wouldn't have made sense. And they wouldn't have released him even, at any time before this, even if he were healthy, because they don't owe him any money until August 30th. Again, Garoppolo has $24.2 million on his contract for 2022 on the base salary, but none of that is guaranteed until if and when he makes the 53-man roster. So there's nothing to lose for the 49ers, right? This money's not guaranteed until August 30th. They might as well take all of the time that they have to see if a market develops for Jimmy Garoppolo, because stuff can happen in the NFL. Other quarterbacks can get hurt, arrested, suspended in the case of Deshaun Watson, and the 49ers in a no-lose situation are simply waiting it out. So no, the situation didn't go the way that anybody planned. The 49ers didn't plan it this way. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't initially plan it this way. He'd be much happier away from all of this, signing with another team now, but shit happens. Guys get hurt in the NFL. Sometimes surgeries don't happen at the best time. And I think that kind of closes this all up full circle, because Jimmy Garoppolo was a good quarterback for the 49ers through his time with the team, but injuries always have dogged him. And injuries continue to dog him and the 49ers, even past the 2021 season, into an offseason in which the 49ers have tried to maneuver and trade him. So those are the 9. The 49ers doubting Trey Lance, the 49ers keeping Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster because they doubt Trey Lance. Those are the 2 big lies. And then you have a lot more going 1 through 9. I'm not going to repeat any of these, but we've called out the lies surrounding Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and the whole 49ers quarterback situation. Hope this crystallized some stuff. Not going to take many questions today, if any questions today. Just want to put this one to rest and go get some rest. Everybody subscribe to The Athletic. Everybody like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and keep it real out there. Stay tethered to the truth as training camp approaches. This was a nice big reset before that happens on Tuesday. All right. Bye now. Everybody take care.